So the challenge now came is how we can get extract this gold from our money. And so my chief operator called me and said, "Hey, now we got the gold you are looking for. What are you gonna do with the gold?" So that was the challenge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Energy Talk podcast. My name is Oluvumi Olajide, and thank you so much for joining me again this week. Now, today we have a very unique conversation. We're speaking with a man named Guled, and he is knowledgeable as he is hilarious. So, this is going to be a very good one. But under the lightheartedness approach to this episode, we're also talking about something very serious. So Guled is from Somalia, and we're going to be talking a lot about representation for African communities or for developing communities, not just African ones, when it comes to global policy debates and global policies that actually get enacted for energy or climate issues. So many times we see that African voices can get left behind, and a good example of this is something that happened quite recently. So an activist named Vanessa Nakate, I hope I'm saying her name correctly. So she is Ugandan, and she was at the Davos conference earlier this month, and she took a picture with Greta and a few other youth climate activists. And when a certain newspaper promoted this event and took a picture of them, they cropped Vanessa out. And mind you, Vanessa was the only African represented in that picture. So this really gives an idea of how the media and people in power either consciously or subconsciously leave out African voices in this conversation. Now, the reality we face is many times you see communities that they don't have a lot of stuff, but they will suffer a lot from the stuff that other people have. And this is just one huge point of the climate conversation, and one of the reasons why I started this podcast. So, this is just me stamping down on my commitment that throughout this podcast history, we're going to focus on sharing as much of stories and voices from underserved communities and underreported communities. We're going to find people who are doing real work, and we're going to bring them to you. So you can look forward to unique stories like that. And Guled Ahmed is an excellent starting point for conversations about African communities thriving out of hardships and out of all other constraints to bring themselves to a place where they can have a seat at the global table, and especially give themselves access to energy and empower communities. So I am very excited about this episode. I had a blast speaking with Ahmed. And this is a long one, so brace in, get a cup of coffee if you're doing anything. So if you're at the gym, this is perfect. So just enjoy this one. This is a very good one. I'm really, really proud of it, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Guled Ahmed.
Sure. Thank you for having me for the interview. My name is Guled Ahmed, and I'm the founder and CEO of Power of Grid and Jiko Biogas. I'm currently based in United States, and we found the Power of Grid back in 2017, and it is mainly um, works on of powering of grid in rural areas mostly, and a little bit in urban areas. And when we started this work was mainly the it was driven mainly by due to lack of accessibility of electricity and high cost of electricity in Somalia.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're based in the US and you're operating a company that is in Somalia. How has that been for you? And when was the last time you've been to Somalia?
That's a tough question. Mostly, people ask me that question a lot. So, and I think in today's world, people working on mobile, and I have a good team in Somalia that we work together, and they are based in Mogadishu and Johor, and mostly in Johor, and outside the capital. And when we found when we started, I mean, since we founded in America, and basically the it was kind of a um, starting as a just concept, just an experimental. We didn't know what we were planning to do, but as we started, it became something really serious to start as a company, and that's how we started. So started with another friend of mine who's from Norway, uh, who joined me later on, and he's an industrial engineer, and I'm civil engineer also, specialized in water source and hydropower. So and that's how basically we started and working together in Somalia.
Okay. So, before we go too much into the conversation, could you just give a description of how your family moved from Somalia to the US, and how young were you when that transition happened in your life?
Right. So first, I think before I moved to USA, and I think we moved after the Civil War, we moved to Pakistan. That's where I've gained my bachelor degree and masters and my overall education there. And there was an exchange, cultural exchange program between Somalia and Pakistan. That's how I get the scholarship, and then that's how I end up in Pakistan. So by the time I finished my masters in Pakistan, I was working with Pakistan Power Engineering Service, where I was running almost 10 dams, hydropower project, and that's how I involved in water source and hydropower. And at the end of the first 2 years, I think it was back in 2005, I was planning to go back to Kenya and start the water source project down there with the World Bank. But fortunately, my family sent me a green card visa, and that's how I get to America.
So,
Yeah.
for the people who are not very familiar with Somalia, because once you put it into Google, the only thing that you're presented with, if I should use that word, is just the civil unrest that's been happening over the last few years. So,
Right.
for the members of the audience that are unfamiliar with Somalia as a country, Somalia as a culture and a community of people, could you just introduce Somalia and give them like a mental picture of what Somalia is like?
Right. If somebody, I know, I understand people will have a different picture than what today's Somalia than, I mean, what it was before. Of course, we had a civil war back in early 90s, and then I think things changed after 2006, and there was a transitional government from 2007 all the way to 2012, and officially they became, I think, a sovereign nation as a back to from both civil war. Um, so that was the first time their president was recognized. That's what I mean. And from that on, I think stability slowly start and coming back. Of course, the country still have issues, similar to other African countries, similar with unrest in some areas, or overall some pretty much the majority of the country. But there are some spots where still safe, and still business is thriving, and people are doing still uh, you know good economy, and moving on. So from that perspective, things way different than before. And I think if you will have asked me in 2016, I mean, and that's what a lot of my friends ask, is that will you go back to Somalia? I would say no, because I wasn't planning to go in 2016 or not, but things changed because of I think how the country was becoming stable more, and there was a lack of development in terms of in energy sector, or or other sectors that really need to move on. And I think that's where I thought probably we can contribute.
Hmm. Okay, so just some statistics for people who care about stuff like this. Somalia has about 15% energy access rate, and with the problems that are currently in Somalia, what was the motivation initially to go into the space with power off grid, with Jiko biogas? What was the initial motivation? Was it just trying to solve the problem, or did you just see the need for that development in the energy sector for the good of the people? So what was your primary motivation in
Right.
getting into Somalia with the companies?
Yeah. So when we first started, actually, I was actually planning to do kind of a irrigation project, a solar irrigation. So there was a friend of mine told me that there was this lady that needs help, the, uh, because she has a high electricity bill that she has to pay. And basically I try to help out and see what can we do. And we provided some solar panels, and that's how we started. And then uh, basically we start collecting data. Africa, the biggest challenge we have in this Somalia, right? Africa is, I think, in general, I would say data is the biggest challenge. I mean, nobody knows how much clients or people need in terms. People will say, like right now, you told me there's only 15%, right? And 15% access, and the
Mm-hmm.
rest don't have. But I don't think that is in reality. It's kind of different because the government never provided that figure. Just want to tell you that. So it's this estimate number comes from somewhere in the World Bank, and which is based, again, it's an estimate, and which is good. It's a starting point. So, but if you go back and you look historical trend, it was kind of different, and that's that. So people will look into the data and say, most communities don't have access to electricity, maybe because we get used to the idea of a grid system, right? In Somalia, there is no grid system at all, but there is what you call decentralized small grid systems, and nobody went there and counted. So for us, when we started actually, the reason we became our name, as you can see, is called Power of Grid, means powering of grid. So we went to the rural communities, last mile. So we went several houses, collected data, and like their income, how many kilowatt they are using, and how much cost per kilowatt. And when we figure out that the data we have is similar, at that time the data was saying also the cost of electricity is like 50 cents or 65 cents per kilowatt. But we found out that when we calculated and took all actual data uh, based on the supply and the demand, right? So you look what the current small utility folks are providing versus what the supply needs, right? And the cost they are getting. So we found out the difference. The cost is somewhere, actual cost is somewhere between $1.50 to $2 per kilowatt. So that's a huge gap, right? So that is one motivation. That's number one. And so when we started, and also people came to us, and I think by the time we started and announced it, I think, and we installed the first solar project. I think the local utilities basically dropped their rate from um, somewhere from $1 to 65 cents overnight. So that was kind of encouraging news, and people basically start approaching us and say, "Hey, guys, we really you guys need to do something about this high electricity and also high water bills and all that." So that's the motivation. If I go back to the about the Jiko biogas, also how we started, also was that basically um, as in Somalia, there are 5,000 people die every year due to indoor pollution. A lot of people don't know that. This is again, this is not from the official. Again, this is from World Health Organization, WHO. That's the data where I got it. And 94% of the population use charcoal or wood stoves. That's the way of the clean. There's no clean cooking alternative in there. So the first time, my business partner and we tried to come up what you call a briquette, right? You're familiar with the briquette, right? Charcoal
No,
briquette.
I'm not actually.
Okay, it's something similar to the charcoal, but it's a kind of processed it through heat, with some kind of wood waste, and it can be converted like it becomes like a charcoal, but they say it's clean charcoal, but it's not in reality. But it's something closer. But the thing is that, we start doing it, and we found out that it's a very expensive process, and the source of to produce that briquette is a very expensive too, and the material is very high, is expensive to find. So as you know, Somalia has a almost we have 40 million livestock. Okay, and the population is actually 10 million or 12 million. So that's like a three and a half times. So we thought, why not think about animal waste to a biogas? And that's how the idea came. And we started a small pilot project, and for about 1 meter, 2 meter cubic biogas, and from waste, and that's actually it succeeded, and that's how we started the biogas as a project.
This is very, very interesting. And something you mentioned earlier that just kind of goes into what you're saying right now is the importance of data in making decisions and actually um, finding solutions that that could actually make changes in these communities. And the livestock figure is just showing that because it's a solution that's unique to Somalia. It's so unique to them. So you've been able to come into that space and really innovate there. So bef- be, before I get too excited about that, so how has the progress of the companies been progressing right now? So we know that Somalia is a country that people don't really have like a lot of spending power in the individual households. Yeah, so how have you been able to take in the technologies into the communities? How have you been able to like convince people to convert over to what you're offering? What technologies do you offer, and how do you run your operations when it comes to having your customers and just maintaining them and providing electricity to them?
Right. So that is the most difficult thing in we struggle, because first of all, if I take one step back, Somalia is a country that is a post civil war. Now it's a fragile state, they call it. Still coming out from post civil war. That's what I call. Um, and mostly development was based, and I think it's most throughout is since independence and majority of the time was it's based on aid dependence, okay, NGO development type. So people, when you go to them and selling a product like solar for electrification, they will say, is that something that is based on NGO? Are you an NGO company? So first of all, we have to explain to them that we are not an NGO. We are a private company, and we are trying to sell this product to reduce their energy cost, so they can get off this continuous electric bill and start something else and save some money. That and that needs market awareness. So you don't have a government that's supporting you that will help you in terms of investing awareness, right? So you have to invest on, first of all, awareness. That took us for a while. So so you have to find ways to sell your product, and which is very difficult when people, like you said, don't have an income, and so uh, we try to find ways we can enter into the market. So we divide it into two categories. One is a lower income, middle income, and upper middle income. So middle income mostly in Somalia are in rural people who have livestock, and have a farm and have a stable income. And upper middle income is some people who have a side on the business, also have a stable job, so they have two jobs kind of thing. So those are the kind of what how we categorize our clients first. And then in order to get into the market, we cater or targeted those folks, because if you start lower income people, the risk is very high. There is no credit system that you can rely. And in order, and y- the default rate will be very high. So that is what we looked in first of all. And so we analyze all that data, because we collected data, and then figure out how we can market to those folks, the middle income and upper middle income. Middle income basically have a farm or livestock as an income, and they have a stable income. And upper middle income basically have a stable job, or maybe working for the NGO or government, and a side business. And their energy demand varies between 30 kilowatt to 100 kilowatt per month. So based on that, that's how we target our clients, and to market that, and to reduce the risk. Now, um, the folks who are middle income mostly are farmers in the rural areas. And one way we tried to approach was, there was one farmer who approached us and asked us for to buy a solar system. And typically we ask a down payment between 20% or 30%, depends on how the risk is. And he didn't have that money. So in order, and my initial approach was, and I was looking initially before that farmer came, a way we can utilize or leverage on the livestock, since we have a lot of livestock, how we can exchange that livestock asset to capital to finance our solar system. And luckily this farmer came, right now doesn't have a money, so but he has a livestock on the side. So what we have asked him is, uh, if he can exchange his goats to a solar system which we have. And basically initially uh, uh, he said no, because people have a strong attachment to their livestock, and I understand that. So in order to convince him now, I have to kind of approach, as you economic behavior. From that sense you have to come in. So what I've explained to him was, the first thing is that, this livestock, typically goats, their lifetime is 6 years, right? And from 3 years, typically a veteran, they will tell you, or 4 years, you might want to sell it, because it's like a car depreciating. So that's one part. So that's so to explain him to that sense, we told him that 50%, 50% of your goat might die because of drought, right? And 20% likely it might be sacrificed for newborn baby, or maybe a new wedding, right? Somebody. So the whole goat value is really 30%. It doesn't have not that much. So I think he kind of he wasn't so, he was still couldn't understand it, but I think he get the idea, because they know droughts, climate changes people impact them for the rest of their life, early age. So they know the chances of this goat to die in due to drought is very high. So you might as well exchange it as an this asset to capital right now, to finance your electricity, rather than letting die. So that's what he get it from that point. And I think he said to me one day, so he came back the other day, so he said, I'm gonna give you one goat, a huge goat, and but I need 300-watt system, which was kind of a, so he was a tough negotiator. So I was like, okay, fine. And I told him, because at that time it was drought time, uh, and so the livestock during the drought is probably the value drops almost 80%. So a typical goat, healthy goat, will cost between 100 to 150. But during the drought, that's during the wet season. So during the drought, it's typically about I would say $15 to $20. So we told him that we will take uh, your goat as a down payment, and we will give you a 250-watt solar system, which you can use to for business, to charge phones, to sell charging business for your clients, and basically for electrification for your house. And I think he liked it, so we used as a down payment, and we exchanged that goat. That was the first time, and he took. So what we did is we set up kind of a ready plug-in system for him. So we did the setup, and because he's going to his village, right? So we cannot go back to his village; it's very far. So we showed him how to do it, and he went back to his village and set it up and start doing his business. So the challenge now came is how we can get extract this goat from our money. And so my chief operator called me and said, "Hey, now we got the goat you are looking for. What are you gonna do with the goat?" So that was the challenge. So I was like, "Okay," and the goat gonna get sick because we don't know how to take care of it, right?
Yeah.
So there was this. So there are two. We will learn another way, but the first way was, there was this butcher came and said, "Hey, you guys have a goat, so you want to sell it?" So because most slaughterhouses, they look goats all over the place, and we said sure, and but he said, but because the exchange price was $100, the guy was said, "Oh, I need $90." So I said, "I'll take it $90. So I'm just gonna lose $10, but at least I get something $90." So that's how we started. So we call it goat for kilowatt hours. People get funny about it, but that was the reality. We have no choice because there's no banking that will give us loan. Uh, we don't have any financing, so that was financing innovation that came out of nowhere. That was, and that was actually the first. I realized that was the first in the world that done. I'm not saying it's never been done. Goats, actually, farmers or those pastoralists, they exchange goods for other commodities. For example, they will come to the town, they want to buy sugar, they will exchange for gold based on that. But for electrification as a commercial, as a down payment to finance electrification, this was the first time ever. So we came up with something, so now it became a brand and a trademark actually. So and now the next level, we became so good at it. Now we started uh, collecting goats and put it in a ranch system. Actually, the first project now is starting soon. Now, basically, to finance our electrification projects, basically, we will produce goats and sell it in the market for export or for slaughterhouse, whatever it is, for people to raise it. And basically, we can finance for rural areas for projects, and it's really going well now. I think we're trying to buy almost 500 goats this year.
Wow. I'm sure a few years ago, before power off grid or Jiko biogas was even on your radar, if someone told you that you would be a good farmer in Somalia, you would have probably thought that was the funniest thing in the world. But
I
this,
think if my family hear that I'm trading, a lot of them tease me that he's an engineer now. He's trading goats. That's the funny part. Yeah, sure. What can I do? I mean, we are all solar engineers, so we have to come up some kind of innovative to help these folks. Otherwise, because nobody's gonna give you money, so you have to be creative to come up with to help these folks and help yourself as well too.
yes, that is very true. There's actually something you mentioned earlier that I wanted to go back to. You mentioned
Right.
about when you're reaching out to get maybe aids or grants, there you have to explain that you're not an NGO, that you're a private company. Do you
Hmm.
think that throughout your operation that's something that has held you back? Because I know that there's some disadvantages and advantages that come with being an NGO and being able to apply for grants and get funding from several organizations around the world. So, do you think that it's something that has held you back, or do you think it's something that has forced you to be more innovative and creative in how you run your business operations?
I think I will say both ways. More, I think, is innovative. Forced me to to be innovative because NGOs is like in Somalia is like it's a brand. This is what people don't get it. NGOs are actually there. Are, don't get me wrong. There are some NGOs who really do good things in Somalia. There are few of them, but overall majority, and this is based on research. And after research, it's not only me. Um, what's the biggest challenge is NGO when they come in or big aid donors, they use their name. Okay, so people they become a brand, right? So they will become on ahead, I mean in front of the government, so people sometimes will assume them they are the government, so they don't believe the government, they believe the NGO because the NGO is delivering. Okay, that's the damage they are doing. That's one part. The other part is uh, they are doing for example, and I'll give you they will come to a village, and I've seen it, that they will install a hand pump. Okay, a hand pump. A hand pump basically is a 1600 technology. People go and use their manually to pump really, really. That takes for hours. And so that kind of thing is very inefficient. Or they will bring an in what do you call a diesel pump basically instead of solar pump, and then they will talk about climate change. It's kind of hypocrisy. And that's and you know how many millions are wasted on diesel pumps. So it's sometimes they are anti climate change, and sometimes they are anti development. So that's the kind of challenge. So you are walking in the middle, and then the people believe in that, and that is the challenge we have to face. For us, I think we are now third year we are going. It took us almost 1 year really people to come to say you guys really doing amazing work, you are private, we didn't know you were NGO, so now we know you, now we rate, I mean people are really coming now more voluntarily to do business with us because finally they figure out that we are not NGO. So 'cause people trust, first of all, in rural areas in Africa, trust is the main thing. People trust their tribes or their chief tribe, and then even though you belong that tribe, it still takes time to trust you for whatever, if it's good. But if NGO shows up tonight and just says, I'm just going to take a photo up and I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to hand you cash aid here and there, and I'll say I really did save a million lives, which is not true, they will take it. But when you come and say, hey, I'm going to change your life, electrify, change in terms of agro business or fishery, it's going to be very hard to sell. So it motivates us basically to do innovative. So that's what kind of so what we did is we went to the farmers, um, farmers. So we diversified. So we moved from good 4 kilowatt, that's for pastoralist, and then we went to the farmers and who need the solar pump, who don't have the money. So what we told them, okay, you don't have the money, that's fine. We're gonna give you the solar pump, but what I want is to exchange your harvest profit for the 50 to 30% for the first 6 months or 8 months till you pay off the system. While you are doing that, in the meantime, I'm gonna take a portion of your or rent some part of your land to develop, say, a poultry farm to generate additional income for him and for us or for her. And also on a side business as well too, we will try to set up a honey business. Okay, it's a really good business. So basically we're trying to diversify his income from one income to three incomes, so he can pay his solar system sooner than before. At the same time, we can create a business we can share and generate an income. So that way, it's kind of another way to innovate investment and sharing, because we are in a sharing business right now, whether it's Uber or ANMB, those things. Again, the sharing economy is really something that can be implemented in the farm or pastoralist through renewable energy. It could happen too. We did that.
Mm. That is quite a very interesting approach to this. And one thing that I always see about successful rural electrification projects is just how important it is to have the community, as you said, just trust what you're doing, and for you to just
Right.
put yourself into the community and really become part of it. Because unless you can achieve that, the progress is always going to be slow. You're always going to run into obstacles that you don't know how to solve. But it's very amazing every time I hear an organization that is doing this and doing it well. So congratulations very much on that. So
Thank
now
you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
going forward into the future, it's 2020. We are 10 years away from the SDG 7 goals. What goals have you set for power off grid and for Jiko biogas going into the future now?
So, if we're talking about, let's talk about the SDGs. I think the SDGs target is 2030, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I want to be very frank. Africa will be lucky if we do this in 2080. And this is, we have to be very realistic, and I think a lot of people will be, and they know it. And I think here in America, even we're talking about 2050. Okay.
Yeah.
And forget about Africa. 2080 even is not realistic, but I'm trying my best, okay, to be, if we really do it. And here's another problem is SDGs. Are we focusing on accessibility, or we are just targeting the dates? Because accessibility, there's various ways to reach the goals through, it's not only renewable energy. People can still use i I am for renewable energy mostly, but Africa has a lot of potential in renewable energy in terms of hydropower, natural gas, nuclear technology using uranium. So there are so many varieties to focus only solar and wind, which is really expensive than hydropower and biogas. So even nobody's talking about African biogas, and that's a very unfortunate case. And that's where, so because if we focus only solar and wind, which is we don't have in Africa those technologies and know-how, it's gonna take longer than 2080 even. So if we care about accessibility, we need to focus all options on the table. I'm not advocating for coal, but the other options for like natural gas and I think nuclear technology, hydropower, which is abundant in Africa, we need to look at. So one of the things we are doing power of grid right now in 2020 is, for the first time, we're gonna generate electricity from rivers from through hydropower, with a micro hydropower between 5 kilowatt up to 15 kilowatt for productive use. Um, because uh, there are several utilities in Somalia and mostly depend on diesel. So we want to shift them to renewable energy, but affordable, right? Because mostly, if you say I'm going to go for mini grid, still we can do it. People will not entertain it because the upfront cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the challenge in renewable energy. Solar and wind, the biggest challenge is upfront cost, and it needs subsidy. So a fragile state like Somalia, that depends pretty much remittance and aid, which doesn't have that much revenue, uh, it's very difficult to subsidize electricity in rural areas or in urban, especially solar. So the first thing to do will be to use your natural resources like rivers, hydropower, or biogas. I think biogas also is very. We are also planning to do biogas electricity generation for up to 3 kilowatt for internally displaced in a rural area. So we are doing two things. One is a hydropower project and a biogas electricity generation. So that's one thing we are planning to do, and also clean cooking from biogas for using for household. So that is the future we are going for power of grid to meet the or achieve the SDG goals. And if you go to our website, our target uh, before 2030 is 10,000 homes. As of today, Power of Grid, we provided electricity for 3,500 households.
Wow.
Okay, so we are already 35% there before within the first 3 years. So we know we're gonna reach our target, but I wanna see how fast we can reach, and also how. So we will be becoming a model for Somalia to follow as and our goal is basically to modernize existing utilities to shift them from uh, using diesel pumps to renewable energy, but affordable renewable and a smart one, and decentralized renewable energy, so that basically we can this will help basically move towards sustainable industrialization. So the thing in Africa which we're missing in Somalia also is that we are in a stagnant economy because we are not investing in agriculture and industrialization, because we skipped those leverage and jumped into internet age.
Hmm. Wow. This is actually very, very interesting, the points you brought up, because you're not just talking about just focusing on just giving people electricity in their homes. It goes way beyond that. It goes into like empowering communities and really pushing economic growth in the countries that we're in. And that is the reality. And sometimes when some organizations talk about rural electrification, it's and just energy in general, it sounds like they're trying to do people a favor and just give them aid or something that's a privilege. But it's something that's becoming more and more of a necessity as the climate is changing and we have to deal with way more problems that we're not used to dealing with. Farming is harder, raising livestock is harder, and simple things are becoming difficult by the day. And the people who are feeling it the most are in countries like Somalia, in since several other countries are across Africa, and some countries in Asia, and some countries in South America. And all these problems are starting to compound in a way that is becoming very, very noticeable now. For the first time, lots of people are noticing it, lots of people are talking about it, and that has led, and all this international attention has led to several policies that have been put in place. So, from your perspective, we mentioned the SDGs, that the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN. How do you feel these policies affect countries like Somalia and countries in Africa and countries in Asia and South America, countries that are still in infancy stages in their development and are still looking to set themselves up to have like good financial structures and good infrastructure? So how do you feel this international policies actually affect countries that need to develop?
So first thing is the policies. These policies are very uh, vague, and if you, I mean, it's not. Uh, I'm sure most African leaders didn't sit in the table and say this is the how we want the SDG supposed to be. Probably somebody from UN or World Bank set up all these goals and came up, and that's how it started. But it is what it is, so we have to deal with it. But coming back to is financing these SDGs goals, right? And capital is the key. And I've seen a lot of projects, a lot of financing is going to non-African companies, starting with the African Development Bank. most of the funding goes to non-African expats or come from Europe or America or somewhere else that is different with a brand name, but are not familiar with the local issues or local innovations. See, if you want to solve a local problem in Africa, you need a local partner, right? That's familiar with the local solutions, and that's what's missing in SDGs mostly. And the policies mostly that comes with SDGs are not designed that way. It's basically just journal, and when they are implementing, is everybody's referencing is to reach. But if we want to reach those goals fast, I mean, at foreseeable future, the policies have to change, basically how much money we want to invest in terms of especially marketing awareness. That's the challenge most African countries have, and also financing, subsidizing, right? Because if you don't subsidize renewable energy mostly, it's going to be very expensive, and that's why people either mostly those projects fail and doesn't reach on time, because it's a very challenge. And I can give you an example. Those companies who were there before, Mobile, you familiar with,
No, I'm not.
or Macoba. There are Mobisol or Macoba. There's a lot of companies who've been. There are a lot of companies who received debt financing, but could not succeed. Now, some of them are in bankruptcy and all that, because they realize that renewable energy is kind of needs a subsidy, and because the way the policies was set up, and now everybody's saying let's subsidize, right? Now the question is, what what about the ones who succeeded, who were doing with the proven results, who are really doing right now in Africa, local African expats or African companies who are doing a great job and succeeding. Is there anybody investing that, whether it's a World Bank or African Development Bank? And those are the challenges that really needs to be resolved. And I think there is ways that can be resolved, and by focusing the locals, especially some part of the financing.
Mm. So these problems, as you say, do you think it has to do with the fact that there are not enough people from communities like yours, and communities in like the communities that are actually in that development state at the table, actually setting these policies or having a say in how these goals get set in the first place?
Right. So mostly in Somalia is um, the way it comes is because, like I said, it's a country that depends on pretty much remittance from outside, and aid policies are pretty much set by aid donors. So aid donors, they can set the policies, but the minister who's going to sit on the table, right, mostly are not qualified to, or have the understanding to negotiate best policies for Somalia, because that's the biggest challenge we have. Because when you have a government official who's not qualified for the position, and is sitting on the table, it's going to be very difficult to get a good result from that. And the other challenge is that you know um, they are not entertaining or inclined to work with the private industry that is really have the solutions that can be solved. So that's one of the challenges we are facing in Somalia. And I think in throughout in Africa, and also either some of them are even those the ones who are apt or know the subject matter, who can negotiate, is still uh, I haven't seen good policies coming out from those, but there are some countries who are really succeeding in either in Rwanda or in Nigeria, or Uganda or Ghana.
Hmm. So another question is, when it comes to some of the goals set and the international climate change policies, the Paris Climate Agreement, sometimes there's been some criticism to them, and I think rightfully so, that they either expect too much or they don't put enough thought into developing communities, and they expect them to, there's this term that I've heard a lot, leapfrog fossil fuels and go directly into renewable energy. And of course, when they mean renewable energy, they are indirectly suggesting it's either solar or wind. So we will fund your projects just as long as it's solar or wind, and you have to do it our way, and you have to do it. So it's almost counterintuitive in some ways, because you're asking people to go solve problems, and you're giving them a small solution set of things to choose from, and you're basically telling them you have to solve the problem this way. And as you rightfully said, it's renewable energy goes way beyond solar and wind. There are other options that can be explored and should be explored. And going forward, do you think this could be a problem that Africa has to set itself apart, that we have the right to solve problems in any way we can, and really push ourselves to innovate in the space and to solve the problems like that?
Right. I think that's a very important question, and I'm glad you asked. And a lot of people mostly don't ask that way. Mostly, it's kind of a journal. They will ask you, "What do you think Paris Agreement?" But I think you went in depth, and I like that. Um, First of all, climate change. I'm gonna break it down to three categories in Africa. The issues they have. One is the Paris Agreement that really needs to be reformed completely for Africa. Seriously, and that's the one I want to talk about. The other one is Kigali Cooling Amendment, which is related with cooling, mostly refrigerator technology, and the third one is Article 6. I don't know if you heard that. Um, Mainly relates to carbon credit trading,
Mm,
which is really something became a big issue the recent climate change conference, COP25. Um, so going back to climate change, for example, the Paris Agreement, the biggest challenge Africa has is between developing countries and non-developing countries, is that in Africa mostly ministries, when they go to Paris Agreement and signing this, their delegates maybe is one or two or three with them. Okay,
yeah.
but countries like India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, when they are coming, they will come like with a 50 delegates or 10 delegates. Okay,
Yeah.
folks, and majority are like a PhD holders, lawyers, know what they're looking is, and all of them coming with their own protection policy, protecting their own technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are the things they're gonna negotiate. In Africa, we just go in there and say, sign and say, hey, we are part of the Paris Agreement, to really doing great things, but nobody doing, there's no protection policy. Nobody is protecting anybody in the business in Africa, nothing. So basically, we just go in there, sign, and have an agreement. I don't know what we sign, but this is what they sign. And I'll tell you, and I'm just gonna put in a layman's language. In Paris, there's a small creek in somewhere in north or east, I don't know, that passes through that some small towns, right? Small river. If you go there and say, I'm going to build a bridge tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you are killing that bridge is going to kill a fly, and a special indigenous fly in that area. People will shout, you bloody murderer, you are anti climate change and whatnot, and the project will shut down. Okay.
Yeah.
But somehow Paris or Italian or I mean France or Italy or Norway uh, or UK will fund projects, large dams. Say an example. I'll give you a real example. In Ethiopia, there's one river called Omo River, which they built uh, three dams on that river. It's called Gibbi 1 and Gibbi 2. You can look at it, Gibbi 3. That Omo River goes all feeds into Lake Turkana. Have you ever heard Lake Turkana in Kenya?
No,
It's a
I haven't.
huge lake, and it's amazing. Um, so what happened is that lake water level dropped from 40 meter to 27 meter, okay, in
Wow.
less than 2 years. Okay, what happened? Those communities lost their fishing livelihood. Guess what happened? Conflict started between the Turkana tribe in Kenya and Ethiopia, Oromo. Okay,
Hmm.
killing each other. What happened? Displacement, right?
Yeah.
Refugees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people come and say, hey, here comes climate change refugees. Okay, we never, somebody manufactured, who invested those big dams, right? So we are indebting those fragile countries like Ethiopia, which is really coming out now, but still have unsustainable dams we're investing, okay, which indebting the citizens of Ethiopia and those governments, whatever, with a huge debt. And now manufacturing climate refugees, which was never been there, okay.
Hmm.
So what, this is the irony of climate change in the Paris Agreement we signed. What did we sign if we are doing that? What was the purpose? So
Wow.
that's why I'm saying it has to be reformed. That is number one. Okay. Then coming back to Kigali cooling, which we have amendment we signed in came in from Rwanda, and a lot of African countries sign an Asian, is basically it's based on technology such as refrigerator that emits pollution. Uh, First of all, let's take a step back. Africa, the whole pollution we emit is less than India and less than Brazil. The whole continent, Africa. Okay, that shows you we are lacking behind industrialization. Okay, so for us to catch up, first of all, India is going to take us, I don't know how many years. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so and to produce that much amount of pollution, I'm not against the Paris Agreement, but I want to reform to be on a fair ground. So when we sign in Kigali amendment, that means we are saying, and Africa, there is no country in Africa that produces refrigerator, right? Technology. We don't
Yeah.
have. We all imported. China is the biggest import exporter to Africa. What do you call refrigerator? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if we adapt that technology, basically, and let me take one step back. Africa biggest post harvest loss is between 40 to 50%, and that is mainly because of lack of cold chain technology. Now if we limit ourselves and we are already losing post harvest loss before the market, okay,
Mm-hmm.
how we gonna how we gonna see development in agribusiness in Africa? So we are limiting ourselves. So we need to know what we are signing before we make a commitment. The other thing is Article 6. Now, Article 6 basically is the amount of carbon you offset that you trade, pretty much in a layman's word. So you're selling your carbon offset, right? In Africa, there is no verification. So it needs a verification, companies or banks that buy those carbon offset from you. In Africa, there is none, pretty much. Mostly are from European or American, and we don't have that kind of a setup. And we are signing Paris Agreement, and I don't know what we are signing. So that is my biggest issue, and I hope this a lot of African leaders are listening this, is- and go back to the I mean the uh, what they have signed and review and come up with the reform policies that really protects their market, reality speaking, because we really need Africa. We skipped agricultural revolution and industrial revolution. We need to go back to that first, fix it, and then come back to the internet of age, because we have a gap issue.
So you've stated out a lot of problems, and honestly, I'm looking at problems a different way now. I'm trying to see problems as opportunities, and I'm really trying to get the
Right.
mindset in that space. So,
Okay.
with all the problems coming up, there are more and more Africans who are actually taking the initiative, starting companies, starting NGOs, starting movements, and just trying to
Mm.
tackle the problems from a community level, a government level, and entrepreneurial level, and just coming at this problem with different angles. From your experience so far about being in operations for just over 3 years now, what advice
Right.
will you give people who are looking to come into this space and try to solve one of these problems at any capacity? What advice can you give them to just make them focus on the mission that they have and just about the perseverance and the creativity needed in order to actually contribute positively to the reality we're facing right now?
Um, really, there's a huge opportunities actually in Africa, and like you just said, I'm looking in terms of opportunities and these problems. And yes, there's a huge opportunities in Africa. What I call is there are three sectors which is are infancy. Okay, one is renewable energy, which is in general energy, and agribusiness and fishery. Okay, and all of them are connected to um, energy. So when you come into this sector, um, make sure that you surround yourself. The first thing is somebody who is familiar with the subject, who's good at it, or better than you. Okay, and and some make sure that you also familiar with the subject. For us, when we started Power of Grid, my background is civil engineering, and also I have water resource management in my postgraduate, and also I have a real estate investment experience, which I'm currently also doing, and also I have experience in hydropower and water infrastructure development. My co-founder Abdullah Malin is a business partner. He is industrial engineer and also has masters in electronic engineering. He is expert on Internet of Things and artificial intelligence and industrialization overall. So we are well surrounded. That is the key point that really helps you. So basically, uh, you looking when you're solving the energy problem, you're looking into affordable innovation and a local innovation for local solution. The people mostly like when they come in renewable energy, anybody can get in, and mostly people go for play and block. Okay, you can go online tonight and make a request for proposal for a project and get all kind of mini grids or whatever ready. But the key is how much is the cost difference. So that's the key, and also financing is the key, which how you innovate financing. So it's you need to find how to convert the asset to capital, whether livestock, whether people some other assets, whatever they have. People have some asset. The question is how we can convert that asset, and that's the challenge in Africa. Mostly people have asset but they don't know. There are so many informal business, so many going on, but mostly they don't know how to tap in. And I think the other thing is missing is also how to get into the connect with show the government how to take an opportunity to invest in renewable energy through awareness and also subsidizing. And that is one thing mostly as entrepreneurs in this field we not prepared or coming because we want to do business. We're not familiar with the government how to deal with it. And in Africa mostly there are so many um, red lines and whatnot. So you have to find ways to be, how to approach those politicians and find to work around them and find solution for them. And the other thing I found is um, to be have a humility, right? That's a very important for us. We have a humility where when we miss an opportunity or when we have losses. For example, when we miss an opportunity, we call the laughing donkey. right? And the way, and I'll tell you, this is where this story came from. My co-founder is basically there was a bunch of animals meet in Africa, right? The lion, a hyena, and the zebra, all of them met, and they were all having a party and chit chatting. And the hyena was telling a story, funny story, and everybody laughed, right? And having fun, but except the donkey never laughed and wasn't having fun, and everybody was surprised why the donkey is not laughing. And so the party was over. The next day they came back, the donkey was cracking up while laughing so hard. And they thought, hey man, they went and say, hey, yesterday you were not laughing, and today you're laughing at us. Are you mocking us or something? And the donkey said, hey guys, easy. I just got the story right now. Yesterday, the one you're talking about, I really understood right now. So so really, so that's the missed opportunity innovation. That's how we kind of have humility in ourselves. So and so that's the kind of approach you have to. So because you will miss opportunities, so you have to have a humility to understand. So next time you never miss it. So it's kind of a way in encouraging as a team. And when you lose, you come up with the "I told you so" kind of a talk about it. Well, we talked about this, so we should have been done. So it's kind of it's a very challenging environment where you have to deal sometimes government and NGO. People will steal your ideas and copy you, but they will never do good thing, or they will do ahead of you. And so those are the things, missed opportunities or losses or anything. So I think there's a huge opportunity in Africa in terms of youth, and I think in terms of technologies availability. So I think it can be taken advantage, and I think it's going to be an opportunity that will invite a lot of entrepreneurial.
Hello, everyone. I told you this was going to be a very good episode, so congratulations on making it to the end. I'm sure you picked up something quite valuable from this conversation. It was very humbling and very provoking to be part of on many angles, because this just shows the importance of finding unique solutions to unique problems and becoming really invested in the communities they're actually trying to provide solutions for. So congratulations on making it to the end. This makes you basically one of our super fans, so I really appreciate you joining us this week. So since you're here, consider leaving us a review, follow us on Instagram and on Twitter. We would love to hear feedback from you. This is the perfect time to get in touch with us while we're still growing and figuring out how things should turn out. So if you have any suggestions as well, we're open to suggestions or criticism. Just keep it nice, or as nice as possible. So next episode we have someone who I was also very excited to talk to. Her name is Meredith Adler. She is the executive director of Student Energy, and she's going to be sharing some very profound insights with us next episode about shaping global conversations and promoting collaboration in the struggle towards a sustainable energy future, a low carbon economy, good earth for the future generation. Whatever the goal is, collaboration is a very huge part of that. It's something that I'm learning and the rest of my team is learning as we are going through the motions of setting up this podcast and really getting integrated into the conversation. So I really appreciate you joining us this week. It's been a blast. So this episode was produced by yours truly, and music was provided very graciously by Jensen. So thank you so much, and we will see you again next week.